Today is our 10th and final Peace Sunday, completing our look at the great peacemakers' true stories from around the world. Our focus this Sunday will continue to be on leaders caring for the planet. Nader Khalili, an architect dedicated to sustainable and inexpensive building materials, and Wangari Maathai, Nobel Peace winner, dedicated to restoring the earth through planting trees. Much of the dialogue about the leaders is taken directly from the book. From humble beginnings to high-rise expert, Iranian-American architect Nader Khalili left a successful career as one of the world's foremost designers of urban skyscrapers and embarked on a quest to find innovative ways to fulfill one of humanity's most basic needs: durable and affordable housing. Equal parts philosopher and architect, Khalili lived his life inspired by the wisdom of the mystic poem Rumi as he created environmentally friendly buildings from the most basic of materials, earth. In 1936, Nader Khalili was born in Tehran, Iran, into a large Muslim family living in a simple earthen dwelling. Khalili later pondered, quote, "Maybe the reason that there is so much earth in my vision is because adobe was the first thing I saw when I opened my eyes," unquote. At age 13, Khalili had a glimpse of his future career when he helped construct a new home for his family. Also interested in writing, by age 20, he had written several short stories and 2 short novels. While Khalili enjoyed writing, he soon discovered another outlet for his creativity, the field of architecture. Moving to Istanbul, Turkey, to study architecture, Khalili met an American woman named Moria. The two soon married and in 1972 had a son they named Dastan. After Khalili received his license as an architect in California, he started designing skyscrapers in Tehran and Los Angeles and became one of the world's top high-rise experts. Khalili recalled, quote, "I used to breathe, eat, and sleep high-rises," unquote. He often appeared on Iranian television, and his face became familiar to millions of people throughout the country. Then one day, Khalili had an experience that changed his life. In a Tehran park, he watched 4-year-old Dastan running foot races with other children. Race after race, Dastan, the youngest in the group, always finished last. The frustrated boy said to his father, quote, "I want to race alone," unquote. Hearing this, Khalili drew a line on the ground and encouraged his son to run by himself. For the rest of the day, Dastan ran many races by himself, each time finishing with a smile on his face and a collection of natural treasures, such as colorful autumn leaves, in his hand. Watching his son joyfully racing alone and always coming in first, Khalili reflected on his own life. Quote, "I was in competition for projects and contracts, but I felt I was in a rat race. I never really helped people," unquote. He vowed, quote, "I would race to my own potential rather than trying to beat someone else. There is an endless reserve of strength in every human to reach his goal, if only this strength is spent in achieving rather than racing and competing," unquote. Boldly, Khalili closed his architecture office, bought a motorcycle, and rode through the Iranian desert for 5 years. The Odyssey drew him closer to nature and to the words of the 13th century Persian poet Rumi, who said, quote, "Earth turns to gold in the hands of the wise," unquote. During his journey, Khalili saw that the adobe houses in many villages were continually eroding from rain and crumbling from earthquakes. Noticing that village kilns, having been fired repeatedly over many decades, stood unscathed, an idea flashed in his mind. Why not fire the adobe houses, fusing them into durable ceramic? With villages, ceramicists, and students, Khalili successfully fired several houses and a 10-classroom school. The work not only restored villagers' buildings, but also their self-sufficiency and respect for the indigenous architecture. Khalili called this firing process giltafton, a combination of the Persian words for firing, baking, and weaving clay. By 1979, Iran was in the midst of a tumultuous Islamic revolution. Although many architects fled during the revolution, Khalili remained, insisting, quote, "I don't want to be part of the left or the right. I desperately want just to be an architect," unquote. Eventually, the situation became too dangerous, and reluctantly, Khalili had to leave his homeland. He later said, quote, "It is not a final success or limelight of fame that I am looking for, but a chance to work in peace," unquote. Moving to the United States with his second wife, Shiva, Khalili began teaching at the Southern California Institute of Architecture, and his daughter, Shifta, was born. In his teaching, he asserted that to create decent housing, quote, "you don't need to butcher the trees, destroy the earth, or manufacture the building materials," unquote. The giltafton process, which he had developed, literally meaning clay firing, aims to renew traditional methods of kiln firing and at the same time encourages the use of readily available traditional earth architecture as inexpensive, comfortable, and durable. It improves the structural weakness of indigenous architecture to enhance its resistance to climatic and seismographic conditions. Before he knew it, giltafton was being considered as a technique for building on the moon, and he was invited to present his method to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Khalili enthusiastically accepted the invitation. He believed that if giltafton process was used in high-tech projects in the West, then decision makers in third world countries would be more likely to use it as well. Plus, he saw this process as a way, quote, "to leave the moon free from blinding shiny faces of steel and titanium and to walk on it with gentle and kind steps," unquote. After his presentation to NASA, the audience responded in a way that is most unusual at a Stoic scientific assembly. They actually cheered. Shortly thereafter, though, two unexpected events shook Khalili's life. He suffered a heart attack and learned that one of his closest friends and students had died in a car crash. Grappling with these events, Khalili discovered two important insights: that without people, architecture was meaningless to him, and that although we cannot prove the meaning of life, we can make our own lives meaningful. Once recovered, Khalili returned to his work with renewed vigor. He presented giltafton to Los Alamos National Laboratory and the United Nations. Khalili explained, quote, "Today, there are 1.2 billion people," that's the number the UN gave, "in this world who have no shelter, or they live in shanty towns, or really below poverty. And there is no way any industry, any money, can buy houses for these people. There is not enough forest, there is not enough cement, and there is not enough steel. It doesn't exist. There is no solution but what is under our feet. Khalili's pioneering approach brought him a certificate of special recognition from the UN and the US Department of Housing and Urban Development. Commissioned by the UN, he returned to Iran to show high-level officials the houses and the school that he had fired years earlier. To his delight, the structures were still being used and were in good condition. Encouraged by this result, Khalili founded the California Institute of Earth Art and Architecture, Cal-Earth Giltafton Foundation, in California's earthquake-prone Mojave Desert. He did this to show that earthen buildings can withstand the harsh desert climate and California's stringent building codes. In addition, he planned to build the first sustainable community in the United States. At Cal-Earth, along with Ileana, his partner and third wife, Khalili developed Super Adobe, a system of building with earth-filled sandbags that are coiled into domed or rectangular shapes, held together by barbed wire and covered with plaster. Khalili explains, quote, Super Adobe is an even simpler way than Giltafton, offers the possibility of safe and affordable shelter for millions in places where no clay or fuel to fire the structure can be found. This construction method allows us to use elements of war, sandbags, and barbed wire, and transform them into elements of peace. This won him the Aga Khan Award for Architecture in 2004. A Super Adobe structure can be built by nearly anyone who can lift a coffee can of earth approximately 5 pounds. And the cost of small Super Adobe home is dirt cheap. Beyond its affordability, Super Adobe is far more durable than wood, which rots, burns, and gets eaten by termites. Plus, it is far more weather resistant, giving it the potential to save lives that might otherwise be claimed by tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, etc. Despite these benefits, California building officials initially scoffed at this unusual building approach. With characteristic tenacity, and despite a second heart attack in 1994, Khalili and his colleagues worked for 6 long years to meet the local and state requirements, building prototypes at Cal-Earth and overseeing UN-related prototypes in the Persian Gulf region. Finally, Super Adobe passed seismic tests, during which the testing equipment broke, but the buildings did not, and was approved by local building officials. Energized by clearing this hurdle, Khalili adapted Super Adobe for not only poor villagers and disaster victims, but also for suburban Westerners. Khalili stated, quote, if you don't want to pay 30 years mortgage, you can spend 6 months, even if you spend a year, to build your house, you are free for another 29 years. Super Adobe is patented, but compassionate. Khalili offers it free for the poor and for disaster-stricken people, such as those affected by the 2004 tsunami in southern Asia, the devastating earthquakes in Iran and Pakistan, and the conflict in Sudan. Instruction is offered through hands-on workshops, videos, distance learning programs, via the internet, and on-site supervision. The future was bright for Khalili and the planet as he continued teaching Earth architecture to people from all walks of life: builders, engineers, architects, and individuals, including children. Khalili rejoiced in these developments, recalling, quote, "The mission of my life for the last 30 years has been to provide shelter for people who cannot afford it," unquote. Khalili's mission was being accomplished through his creative solutions for durable, affordable, and environmentally friendly shelter. Thus, Nader Khalili built the foundation for the future of sustainable communities. Khalili passed away at the age of 72 in March of 2008. He leaves behind him a vision and quest which his son and daughter are now working to carry forward. We will now see a video of the super adobe method, followed by a few more famous quotes.
Remember the nursery rhyme, The Three Little Pigs? These piggies each built homes, one of straw, one of sticks, and one of bricks. Long story short, this big bad wolf did some huffing and puffing, and before you knew it, the flimsy homes made from only natural materials were history. Of course, if that were today, the wolf would totally make a living as a construction and possibly a bacon recipe influencer on the gram. Now, beautiful homes with natural materials are sturdier than ever, with the design giving a rebirth to homes made of earth. Here's Allie Ward to explain.
Elaborate or modest, all of these homes are made with the same basic building blocks. They're called super adobe, and they're super dope. This is Nader Khalili, and she and her brother Dastan now carry on a dream built by their late father, Nader Khalili. He set out to do research on and train people in earth architecture.
Super adobe is a building technology invented by my father that is a very basic principle of using sandbags and barbed wire, along with the principles of the arch, to build dome and vault structures.
These homes can be built anywhere on Earth, safely and inexpensively, and they can be updated with modern kitchens and other amenities if desired. I visited Nader at Cal Earth Institute, located in Hesperia, California, to spend some time in a real-life wonderland.
I love that there's so many like sitting and leaning places.
Fine, you know.
It's like a playground.
These structures are, by design, earthquake-resistant, tornado-proof, hurricane-proof, and can withstand all kinds of extreme weather situations.
What characteristics are really notable with this type of building?
These are handmade a lot of times. We don't use a lot of machinery because we want it to be accessible to people that don't have that type of equipment wherever they are. It's sort of a tangible poetry, my father would call it.
We all came here, a bunch of dreamers, trying to carry out this big dream. How to provide shelter for the homeless, the disaster, refugees, how to help them to build.
He was a humanitarian and an architect. He was really interested in finding solutions for building for people throughout the world who didn't have access to unlimited money and materials.
To that end, he found a way to create super strong sandbag structures.
Between every single row of super adobe of the sandbag is a course of barbed wire. And that tension element, that's what keeps each of the bags connected to each other and the whole building connected to itself. So it will move as a unit. That's what sort of makes it so seismically safe.
And so how is that dome structure made?
In order for you to achieve the dome geometry, at every layer, you have to come in slightly. We call it corbelling.
Never gonna look at a stack of onion rings the same. It's corbelling.
That's right.
Cal Earth begs you to explore, like a playground,
This is fun.
Super adorable.
and is extra enriching because it brings a new dimension to learning.
Highly climbable.